Client's recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Werfel, Secretary Liu asked you to put this report together to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. I look at page 35, and I see basically a case made for a budget increase. Your budget asked for over $1 billion in more spending for your agency, and you're asking us to hire another 4,572 employees. Let me read you what we've already learned in just 2 months. In just 2 months, we've got a conference in Atlanta which had a celebrity chef Wolfgang Puck cater, costing $2.4 million. We've got a conference in Anaheim, California, $4.1 million. A conference in Philadelphia, $2.9 million. A conference in San Diego, $4.1 million. One of these conferences, you had $135,000 for 15 speakers. That's about $9,000 per speaker. The IRS paid for the deputy commissioner to stay 5 nights in the presidential suite at the Hilton Hotel during one of these conferences. You paid $17,000 to a speaker to create paintings of Bono, Michael Jordan, Abraham Lincoln, and others. We hear a report of crony contracting between an improper relationship between an IRS contractor and a person whose business had less than $250,000 in income the prior year is getting awarded a $500 million contract. Between 2010 and 2012, you had 225 conferences costing $49 million. 25 conferences costing $49 million. Let me see if I can put this in perspective for you. I represent a town of Sturtevant, Wisconsin. A little less than 7,000 people live there. It's a great village. The village of Sturtevant is basically a blue-collar town. People work at the Case Tractor Factory. They work at the S.E. Johnson Factory. It's surrounded by cornfields and bean fields and lots of small businesses. It took more than 100% of the federal taxes paid by the working families of the village of Sturtevant, Wisconsin, to pay for the 225 conferences you spent at the IRS from 2010 to 2012. That's the way you need to think of this. People are working hard. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're paying their taxes. And this is what you're spending their taxpayer dollars on? And now you come here asking us for $1 billion, about a 10% increase. You're asking us to hire another 4,500 people. I represent Rock County. That's my home. The population of Rock County and all of the working families in Rock County, their taxes wouldn't even cover the $1 billion increase that you're asking for. You're here representing the president. You're asking us for this increase. I know you're new to the IRS. You come from the Office of Management and Budget, and you have a great reputation. So you're a budget cruncher. How on earth do you think you have the moral authority to ask for this? Why would we, representing the taxpayers we represent, give you all this extra money you are asking for if this is what the IRS is doing with hard-earned taxpayer dollars? We're seeing just in 2 months waste, fraud, abuse, and taxpayer targeting, and you're saying give us another $1 billion. Why should we do that?
Congressman, you're asking very important questions, and I'd love the opportunity to address them. First, I agree. The costs that you're referring to are excessive and in many cases inappropriate and should not have happened. The reports that are coming out that are identifying these are covering events that occurred 2 and 3 years ago. And my concern is great. But my concern would be even greater if I saw that those patterns of spending are continuing through today. In many cases, they are not. We are looking at 68% cut in training travel. We're looking at 45% cut in other travel in the IRS. We've cut our printing by 30%. We've cut our professional and technical services by 25%. There are deep cuts going on in a lot of these activities. Now,
here's my suggestion. Let's have these cuts take place. and then come back to us in a year or two, and let's see if you're running this place well. Then we'll consider a budget increase. How's that sound?
I will say this. It's a fair point. I will say this, that there's more cuts to be made. And I think in this report, in Section 3, and in subsequent testimony that I'll give to this committee, I will furnish for you additional cuts so that we can go even deeper, so that every penny is watched even more closely than it is.
Great. So it sounds like you don't need a budget increase.
No, I'm not saying that, because I think there's a broader macro point. And it goes, I think, back to some of the questions that Congressman Johnson was asking. We still have an indispensable mission to enforce the tax code, to go after fraud. The cuts that we are seeing dwarf any kind of conference expenditures that we have. The materiality difference is much different. And we just have to look at this and say, okay, has the IRS done enough to get its shop in order to cut those excessive costs? I'll make the case to you that we're going in the right direction. But I'll also make the case to you that if we underfund other critical priorities that lead to improved taxpayer service and improved enforcement of the tax code, then we're leaving dollars on the table for the American people, because every dollar spent by the IRS has a positive return.
Just don't forget, you work for the taxpayer. It's not the other way around.
I understand
Time has
that.
expired.